So at 5 p.m., I scheduled an email that landed in their inbox at 9 a.m. the next day saying, "Thank you for the opportunity. Yesterday was my first and last day." That is the point where I finally was like, you know what? I need to run my own company. Creating a life that is authentic, bold, and purposeful takes audacity and truth telling. It takes disruption. That is what it means to be a professional troublemaker. Professional Troublemaker is a best-selling book, this podcast, and frankly, a life habit. And I'm your host, Luvvie Ajayi Jones. I'm here to bring you perspectives, deep dives, and conversations about culture, business, life, and leadership. And welcome to Season 5, which I'm really excited about. This season is dedicated to the glory and grit of entrepreneurship. 2023 was my toughest year as a business owner, and there was a point where I was 3 months away from being bankrupt. So let's talk about it. Let's get really real about running your own business, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because while people love to glorify entrepreneurship, they often leave out the tough lessons, the failures, and the pivots that have had to happen. My hope after this series of episodes is that you feel more informed about what it truly takes to run a purpose-driven business. You feel less alone about all the times you messed up, and you walk away knowing what to avoid so you don't make some of the same mistakes I've made. Let's get into it. Part of what comes with being a professional troublemaker is telling the truth. And this season of Professional Troublemaker podcast is about telling the hard truths about entrepreneurship and running a business. How it can be trash, how it can be rewarding, and how it will test you, trigger you, traumatize you. How it can bring you freedom, expansion, and community. I'm your host, Luvvie Ajayi Jones, and I'm a 4-time New York Times bestselling author, noted speaker, and book advisor who thrives at the intersection of culture, business, and leadership. I've been running my own company for 14 years. So let's talk about some of the things we only say to ourselves about entrepreneurship, or things we only say in our group chats or to our friends. Let's bring entrepreneurship to this red table and drag it for filth. We're going to break it down to build it back up. And let's just drop it all down to the floor and pick it up. Because 2023, I thought I was going to lose my business and go bankrupt. It stressed me out to the point where there was one week where I didn't get out of bed. And it made me lose a lot of faith in humans. It made me lose trust in myself. And it made me question what I was doing it all for. Like I felt like I girl bossed too hard. Lady of leisure me, please. But I'll get to the specifics of that later. First, I want to tell you how I even got here running a 7-figure company because it wasn't the original plan. Like being an entrepreneur was not the goal when I was growing up. So let me tell you more about my origin story and kind of how all this came to be. So growing up, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Like, being the good Nigerian girl that I was, the goal was for me to help people. And I thought being a doctor was the way to do that. So when I started college at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, my major was psychology pre-med. And I went in with the idea that I would get my degree in psychology, but then I'd end up in med school. Well, freshman year, I ended up taking chemistry. And even though I tried, even though I studied, even though I went to class all the time, at the end of the semester, my grade was a D. And it was like, Dr. Dream is dead. And I instantly was like, you know what? I don't think I want to be a doctor. I don't even like hospitals. So I literally went and dropped the pre-med piece. I still loved psychology. I was still really interested in it. So I was like, you know what? I'll just do that then. That same semester, I got peer pressured into starting a blog because my friends were like, oh, we're starting a weblog. That's what it was called back then. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to start one too. And the blog was basically documenting my undergrad life and what I was dealing with on campus and the D I was getting that I clearly should have been studying for. And the cool thing is the blog that I didn't expect to do much, like ended up getting people's attention. Fun fact, I actually ended up getting hired to be an advice columnist for the school paper by my friend Amara, who was the first Black editor-in-chief that the school's newspaper ever had in its 150-year history. So she was like, I want to give you an advice column. Shout out to nepotism. Okay, I'm a fan of it. especially when it comes to Black people being, hooking each other up. So yeah, that's how I started blogging. When I graduated with my degree in psychology, I actually did not end up applying for grad school immediately. I started working as a marketing coordinator for a nonprofit because I also fell in love with marketing while I was in school. I got a bunch of internships. I was like, oh, this is really fun. And I think I'm good at it. So 9 to 5, I would go to work as a marketing coordinator. And then I would come home and blog. And my blog started getting more and more attention, and more people started reading it. And in 2009, it won its first award, and it was for Best Humor Blog in the Black Web Blog Awards. Now, that blog, awesomelyluvvie.com, still exists, by the way. I still have awesomelyluvvie.com. Y'all can go, y'all can read my evolution as a thinker, as a writer, as a human being. Blogging wasn't paying me. Back then, it was considered playing on the internet. So my full-time job was paying my bills, but then blogging was really where my passion was.
So my full-time job, I was a marketing coordinator for a nonprofit that was teaching other nonprofits how to tell their stories. So like really teaching other nonprofits how to use social media and marketing to get their mission out there. And I actually really, really liked that job. Like for me in that moment, it was a dream job. But I'm gonna tell y'all something right now. I used to be at work blogging, okay? Like in between me doing my emails for real, I'm over here publishing posts on Awesomely Lovey. Like I low key was being raggedy. So I'm gonna fast forward. April 2010, I ended up getting laid off that job. And I had the nerve to be surprised because, to be quite honest, I really feel like they should have fired me. So I think they did me a favor by laying me off, but shout out to them, community media workshop, y'all about it. And yeah, I was being a trash employee, but they laid me off, which they did me a great favor so I can collect unemployment. So I'm telling you, I found a blog post that I wrote on April 21st, 2010, where I talked about being laid off and my reflection around it. So let me read it to you. So I said, just closed one chapter of my life. I feel like it was only the prologue to something that'll be an amazing story. What's to come lays expansive in front of me. The possibilities are overwhelming as I stand here wondering what's next. I must stop and take a deep breath to enjoy this moment. Greatness awaits. My leap of faith was a push from the universe/God, and I owe him. As always, failure isn't an option. A new day, a blessing that isn't too disguised. This is all code for your favorite blogger is now fun employed as of last week. Budget cuts drop kicked my position through goalposts of life. No drama attached though. I loved my job and my bosses and my coworkers, so it wasn't any funny business. My boss was even so nice when he told me, but still, damn you, recession. With that being said, I'm not upset about it. I figured that it happened for a reason. I'll use this opportunity to really build on the work I've been doing on the side. So, like my social media consulting, hit me up if you want a piece. Either way, this is a new chapter in my life. I got to take it and write a dope story. When one door closes, another opens. But often we look so long, so regretfully upon the closed door that we fail to see the one that has opened for us. That's a quote by Alexander Graham Bell. I can't afford to keep staring at that closed door. Too many other ones waiting for me to burst through, or I'll build my own. Onward. That was April 21st, 2010. I definitely wrote about my hope, and to see a lot of what I wrote in that actually having unfolded, it's magical. So yeah. But like y'all, even though I wrote that blog post, I didn't take that as a sign to now run my own business. I still didn't believe entrepreneurship was for me. I wanted certainty of regular paychecks. And to be quite honest, it wasn't something that was on my vision board, like to become a business owner. I was just like, yeah, cool. I got laid off, new opportunities, but I just need to apply for more jobs.
And while I'm looking for more jobs, I will do marketing for other blogs and help them build their websites because, I'm going hustle. I'm always find the hustle. So I was applying for marketing coordinator jobs, but I was still making money on the side, doing freelancing and consulting. Literally, I taught myself how to write code. So I was creating websites for fellow bloggers. I was helping small organizations do social media strategy. At this point, I even started my own nonprofit. I was doing a lot, but my writing was consistent. I would be blogging about, what was happening in the world. I'd be blogging about television. I'd be writing about social justice and politics. I'd be keen about why pink starburst is the best and yellow is the one you give to the person you don't really like. So my website became the place where people would come to hear what they were thinking, but dared not to say. Luvvie.com was a place where, yeah, one day you might come and laugh about why I hate kale. And then the day after that, you might read a blog post on the stages of injustice against Black people. And then you might come back on later and then read a scandal recap. So it became this place where people would build community and we all laughed and we thought and we gave our opinions. Yet and still, I did not think writing or entrepreneurship was a mission probably until 2012. Mind you, this is 2 years after I got laid off. I did not have another full-time job. I was actually working for myself already. But I think I fought it because the uncertainty of entrepreneurship is real. Without a blueprint, I was like, how am I going to do this? And I think we often talk about it's hard to be it if you can't see it. For me, I thought about entrepreneurs as people who did these grand scale companies like Facebook, right? Mark Zuckerberg was an entrepreneur to me. So I didn't realize what it could look like in the way I did it. So again, 2012 happened, big year. What happened that year is Scandal started. And I ended up at an event where Shonda Rhimes was getting an award. Kerry Washington presented her the award and said, in a month we have this show coming out called Scandal. And I was like, oh. So then when Scandal started, I fell in love with it and I started recapping it. And my Scandal recaps started becoming the thing that everybody started reading. It's like you watch Scandal on Thursday nights and then Friday morning you will come on awesomelyluvvie.com and read a 3,000 word recap where even if you missed the show, you got all the details, everything that was important. And my Scandal recaps took off. And it really brought eyes onto my blog. And I remember finally I got hired to work for a company. I was hired to do marketing for a global food brand. And I went in there the first day and I was working on a deck by like 11 a.m. And by like noon, I felt like the walls were closing in on me. It felt like, oh my gosh, it was uncomfortable. It was physically uncomfortable. And I remember being like, yeah, nah, I'm going to have to actually make this work for myself thing work because this is clearly not where I belong anymore. So at 5 p.m., I scheduled an email that landed in their inbox at 9 a.m. the next day saying, thank you for the opportunity. Yesterday was my first and last day. That is the point where I finally was like, you know what? I need to run my own company and I need to run my own business. And I need to take seriously this writing, this speaking that I'm doing, this teaching that I'm doing. This is an actual company. That is the point. And so it took me over 2 years to do that. So yeah, I started running my company for real, I would say in 2012. It is now 2024. A lot has happened. Let me keep telling you the story. So I keep blogging. I'm speaking now, like I'm getting hired to speak at different conferences. I'm doing a lot of projects and partnerships. I'm making decent money. My last paycheck with a company, I was making $35,000 in the year as a full-time marketing coordinator. So I was like, as long as I can make more than that, I'm doing all right. Between all those different things, I end up making more than that. And in 2014, I remember I woke up one day and there were a bunch of messages from my audience. And people were like, hey, we just read something that didn't have your name on it, but it sounded like you. So I check it out, and it's this university website, like a journalism website. And somebody had written a piece that actually plagiarized me, did not give me any credit. And my audience had peeped it and they snitched. And I remember I went on a ranting rampage across social media where I dragged this dude up and down, like, yo, how you gonna use my words and you're not gonna tell me, give me credit? Y'all, I dragged them so bad I actually had to go take a nap because I was so tired. Whatever I had to do that day, I ain't do. So when I woke up from my nap, I had an email from the guy who was like, hey, I've been seeing your messages and your tweets and people have been tagging me. I'm so sorry. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. So I remember I went to Twitter and I said, Is there not a limited edition handbook on how not to be a terrible human being? And I pressed publish on that tweet, and it's like a light bulb blew up on top of my head where I was like, oh snap, that's the book I need to write. I need to write that book, the limited edition handbook on how not to be a terrible human being. And that's when I got the idea for my first book, I'm Judging You, the Do Better Manual. A few months later, I got an email from an agent, a book agent, who was like, I've been reading your blog for years. There's a book in you. And I was like, funny that you said that. I actually have my book idea. So I signed with that agent. I wrote my book proposal in a couple of weeks. February 2015, we started sending my book proposal out to publishers. What also happened February 2015? Issa Rae's Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl, the book came out. So literally the week that Issa's book came out, my book was being shopped out to publishers. Again, I'm at this point, I don't have as big of a platform as people would imagine. I had an audience that was really dedicated. I had people who trusted my work and my name. I had a good network that I had cultivated over years of just showing up and being excellent. But when my book was coming up, a bunch of the editors were like, I don't know if this book is going to sell. I don't know. If you're a blogger, you're not famous. Also, will bloggers actually be able to write books that's actually going to sell, especially a Black blogger? Y'all, my book got declined by 11 editors. They thought it was too risky. And only one editor said, yes, we want it. And I signed with Macmillan, Henry Holt, my first book deal in March 2015. And I knew that my mission was to make it so another Black woman would walk into publishers and be taken more seriously. So I was like, yo, this book, I got to kill it. It needs to do so well because I wanted to open doors. And that is how I put I'm Judging You on my back. And I was like, I'm going to work on all my stuff. I'm going to create the best marketing plan I've ever created. And I'm going to leverage my whole network and do what it can so this book can hit the times list, because if it does, it will change the game. So September 2016, the book came out, I'm Judging You, and it instantly hit the times list. And not just that, it went above and beyond any type of sales that they were expecting from the book. Yo, instantly changed my life. Opened doors that I didn't even think existed. And the fact that I could say I was a New York Times bestseller also strengthened my credentials as a CEO, as somebody who's running a company. And at this point, I only had an assistant. I didn't have a team. I had an assistant. But 2016, when I hit the Times list, I was able to get representation. So I started being represented by Andrea Nelson Meggs at ICM. She's now at UTA. I'm at UTA with her too. But literally hitting the Times list changed so much for me. It allowed me to be taken seriously in a way that I hadn't before. And it also gave me the confidence to understand that, listen, I can do the things that I put my mind to, even the hardest things, because that is a tough task. First time author who did not have a massive machine behind her, who did not have a massive budget to market it. And I end up hitting the list at number 5. That was epic, epic, epic. And honestly, it also allowed me to retire my mother. It was a significant accomplishment that went beyond just the bragging rights of, oh, I'm on the Times list. It now also allowed I'm Judging You to be used in other people's book proposals. And honestly, my goal of people being taken more seriously because of my work happened. People started putting I'm Judging You in their book proposals. And I know people got giant checks because of that book. And that makes me really proud. And then 2017, I came out with I did a TED Talk. It came out December 2017. It went viral. It had 1 million views in a month. That also changed my life. I started really being invited to speak all over the world. My company, All Love Media, is a company that creates content to make people think critically, feel joy, and compel them to take action that will transform the world and leave it better than they found it. So throughout the years, I had many of these moments that were catalyst moments that pushed the company onward and upward in ways that blew my mind. So I started slowly building my team. I started slowly getting it really to become a company that wasn't just about me and what I was putting out every day. And my book started enabling that. So in 2021, my second book, Professional Troublemaker, the Fear Fighter Manual, came out. hit the Times list instantly, had me geeked because I was like, great. Now I know that was not a fluke. The 50-page marketing strategy that I came up with, it works. The cheat codes that I have now, it works. The formula that I know works for me actually can be replicated. And that came out in the middle of the pandemic, right? Another time where nobody knew how business was going to go. We were all nervous, but I will tell you, my business transformed and soared during the pandemic. My speaking picked up. There was one day where I actually had 2 speaking engagements from my house. Okay. I was in my pajamas with a blazer and I had 2 speaking engagements. So, yeah, over the years, my company has transformed. And then I looked up one day and I had a team. I had 7 people that I was responsible for, full time, salaried. It became less about how much money do I need to live and became more about how can I make sure I'm making payroll. Yeah, that is the Cliff Notes version of how we got to where we got to today, how my company started, how I became an entrepreneur. So I am a failed doctor who became an entrepreneur by accident and God's plans. And 14 years later, and a lot of grace and a lot of mistakes and a lot of blessings, I'm over here still learning hard lessons and trying to make it work. This season, I plan on digging into the specifics of why 2023 was really hard. I want us to talk about how being a CEO and being a business owner should require you to also go to therapy because it will trigger you in ways that you don't even realize you have triggers around. I want us to talk about how do you build a team that's sustainable and foundations and systems that can actually work without you. I want to talk about some of the top mistakes that I've made that I had to pivot from. I'm going to be interviewing certain people who also run in their own business who I deeply respect to bring their perspective to the table also on all the lessons they've learned. Because I'm telling you, the tussle is real. I am surrounded by other entrepreneurs and I'm telling you, we are all in the same struggle. So I'm like, clearly there's this collective lesson that we're learning at the same time. And one of the things that I'm also trying to work on is how do we run a business with an abundance mindset, even during the seasons when revenue might not be as great. So, yeah, I'm excited for this season of Professional Troublemaker. Next episode, y'all, I'm going to tell you what happened in 2023. I'm going to tell you how I ended up firing my whole team and basically starting from scratch. How, man, it was tough. And I was doing all of that while launching my first children's book, Little Troublemaker Makes a Mess. I was firing people while I was getting off a stage from doing press. So yeah, this next episode is going to be good. I mean, this whole season is going to be good. So tune in. And y'all, by the way, I'm probably going to have some ads this season because one of the things I also learned last year is I do not have to sacrifice my pockets as I aim to serve people. Somebody got to pay for these studio sessions, editing and whatnot. But as always, you know I stand by whatever I bring to the table. So if I'm vouching for it, you truly like it. So you ain't got to worry about kale commercials or whatever. Authenticity and profit can still mesh. So you know what I'm saying? We're going to bring that to the table too. So let me know if y'all have any questions for me. Subscribe everywhere your podcast fix is and tell your fellow entrepreneur friends to listen in. I think we're all going to learn a lot this season. If you dig what you just heard and want to make sure you don't miss another episode of Professional Troublemaker, subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast fix. And leave a review. Let the folks know this is valuable content. You can follow me at Luvvie everywhere on social media, Luvvie. And if you love this podcast, you'll love my newsletter, The Love Letter, LUVVLETTER.com. That's where you go sign up, and it's my weekly note on all things culture, business, and leadership. Tap in all over and talk to you on the next episode.